U.S. ambassador blocked from visiting Bobi Wine as official. Warns don't cry for Ugandans. By Owen McSweeney, CNN. CNN, the United States ambassador to Uganda was blocked by Ugandan security forces from visiting presidential candidate Bobi Wine on Monday. Wine, a singer-turned-politician, whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, has been under house arrest after the military surrounded his home on Friday. Uganda's longtime leader President Yoweri Museveni was declared winner for a record sixth term, amid an internet blackout and allegations of rigging. Ambassador Natalie E. Brown went to Wine's residence to check on his health and safety, because he has effectively been unable to leave his home, with security forces surrounding his residence, the embassy in Kampala said in a Facebook post. Uganda's election campaigns were marred by the harassment of opposition candidates, campaign staff, and supporters, suppression of the media and civil society organization activities, and a nationwide internet shutdown before, during, and after voting day, the Post said. Speaking through one of his associates, Wine said he had run out of food, and that Brown was unable to leave any with him. The main motivation for us to keep doing what we're doing in the face of all of this intimidation is because what we are doing is moral, he said in an audio message posted on Twitter on Monday. Wine rejects Saturday's election results, saying he has evidence of fraud and intimidation. He did not provide details of that alleged evidence, saying his team would share it when communications lines were restored. Uganda's government spokesman, Afwono Opondo, wrote in an opinion piece that Brown shouldn't cry for Ugandans and accused the U.S. of meddling. For Natalie to cast doubt that elections wouldn't be credible merely because the U.S. Embassy had voluntarily pulled out of observation is aimless shooting, he said in the piece, which he posted on his Twitter page. If U.S. democracy was unassailable, Brown should first note President Donald Trump's false election fraud claims and the Capitol riot, he added. As of now, Natalie should be the last person giving unqualified lectures on election integrity. The U.S. decided not to observe the elections due to the Electoral Commission's decision to deny more than three-quarters of its accreditation requests, said Brown in a statement on Wednesday, a day ahead of the elections. The embassy called on the Museveni's government to respect its citizens' human rights and fundamental freedoms and to uphold international human rights standards. CNN also learned that after 5 days of internet blackout, Ugandans are back online. As Bobi Wine remains under house arrest. By Owen McSweeney from edition.cnn.com. Uganda's internet shutdown has been described as a textbook case of premeditated, pre-election internet blackout, as connectivity was restored after incumbent President Yoweri Museveni was declared winner for a record sixth term. Internet connectivity was restored after 5 days of blackout and rose to 90% on Monday, but extensive social media and messaging restrictions remained, Internet Monitor NetBlocks told CNN. This was a textbook case, said Alp Tokayer, founder of the London-based agency. The networks still running were generally infrastructure-related or state-run, he added. Bobi Wine, a singer-turned-politician, whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, came a far second in the vote, according to the country's election commission. He has been under house arrest after military surrounded his home on Friday, he said. Heavily armed military and police raided his party offices in Kampala on Monday, an administrator tweeted from Wine's official Twitter account. Wine has rejected the election results, describing them as rigged, and called on the country to dismiss the results. Wine said he had evidence of fraud and intimidation, but he did not provide details of what evidence he had, saying his team would share it when communications lines were restored. He had earlier accused the Electoral Commission of vote rigging. When contacted for comment by CNN, President Museveni's office did not reply at the time of writing. Museveni's house arrest of Wine and blocking of the internet were met with international condemnation over the weekend. Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor for United States President-elect Joe Biden, described the news as deeply concerning. Bobi Wine, other political figures, and their supporters should not be harmed, and those who perpetrate political violence must be held accountable, he said in a tweet on Sunday. After this flawed election, the world is watching. UN Watch, a non-profit human rights organization, sent mock congratulations to Museveni on his re-election, saying he won after imprisoning and silencing opponents and shutting down the internet. These articles from CNN official site have been translated into audio by JB Muwonj. Moving forward. Other news from AP News, Associated Press have come to note that, despite election loss, Uganda's Bobi Wine wins growing power. Associated Press, Ugandan presidential challenger Bobi Wine has emerged from last week's disputed election as the country's most powerful opposition leader after his party won the most seats of any opposition group in the National Assembly. It's a major achievement for a party that's barely 6 months old and almost didn't make it on the ballot when it was accused by government officials of being an illegal entity. While longtime President Yoweri Museveni has been declared the winner of a sixth term, the rise of the 38-year-old Wine's party marks a generational shift. We set out to see change of leadership at all levels. We have not achieved the ultimate, but we are still on course. It's like felling a tree. You keep cutting, chipping away until the tree falls, said Joel Senyonai, spokesman for Wine's National Unity Platform. Removing Museveni through voting, he added, is not easy, but it's not impossible. Wine, a singer-turned-lawmaker whose real name is Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, now will decide who leads the opposition in Uganda's legislature after his party won at least 56 seats. That number could rise to 61 when final results are announced. But the ruling National Resistance Movement Party still has over 300 seats, an absolute majority that means Museveni can move ahead with his agenda without negotiating with the opposition. Wine's party, however, also will lead the influential oversight committees that long were dominated by an opposition group led by Kizza Besigye, who sat out this election amid Wine's meteoric rise. He has managed to write something new, Nicholas Sengoba, an analyst and newspaper columnist, said of Wine. He has put a dent in the Museveni establishment. He has dented the narrative in Uganda that to be a national leader you must have a military background. Museveni, a former guerrilla leader who has held office since 1986, faced arguably his greatest election challenge yet from Wine. The 76-year-old president was able to run for another term, allowing him to extend his rule to 4 decades, after lawmakers in 2017 removed the last constitutional obstacle age limits to a possible life presidency. For decades a U.S. ally on regional security, Museveni now finds himself increasingly at odds with an outside world he sees as hellbent on regime change. Wine has urged the international community, including the United States, to suspend the billions of dollars in foreign aid that he says props up a brutal regime. Museveni, in response, has called Wine a foreign agent and says he will not tolerate interference from the international partners whose money helps his government provide important public services. The Bazungu. I don't want to be racist, but they are the ones who are mostly involved in meddling, Museveni said in a televised address on Saturday after he was declared the election winner, using a Swahili word for white people. Foreign meddling will not be tolerated. On Monday, the U.S. ambassador to Uganda was blocked by security forces from visiting Wine at his home, which is surrounded by soldiers. Police say the deployment is to prevent Wine's presence and the public from inspiring riots after the disputed polls. Museveni won Thursday's election with 58% of the vote, while Wine had 34%, according to official results. That's Museveni's lowest share of the vote since his government first organized elections in 1996, when he won 75%. Many members of Museveni's government, including the vice president, lost or failed to win parliamentary seats. Many of the losses were to candidates from Wine's party, which swept the central region that includes the capital, Kampala, as well as an enclave that once was the launchpad of the war that brought Museveni to power. If you have lost your Mecca, then what next? Adrian Juko, an analyst who runs a local rights watchdog, told local broadcaster NTV, referring to Museveni's loss in Luwero district. Wine insists he won the election and says he will prove allegations the military was stuffing ballot boxes, casting ballots for people and chasing voters away from polling stations. He has posted a video on Facebook purporting to show a police officer stuffing a box with ballots in an undisclosed location. I know many of you were brutalized for trying to record evidence of rigging, but those who succeeded, please send in the videos, Wine said on Tuesday. The whole world must see Museveni for who he is, a shameless, ruthless election thief who is yet again trying to suppress the will of the citizens. Museveni has dismissed allegations of vote rigging. I think this may turn out to be the most cheating-free election since 1962, when Uganda won independence from Britain, he said in his national address. Wine, who is effectively under house arrest, can challenge the election results in Uganda's highest court. But judges in the past have been reluctant to rule against Museveni, dismissing allegations of irregularities as not being substantial enough to affect the overall election outcome. A presidential candidate must launch any legal challenge to election results within 10 days of the declaration of final results. Authorities continue to face questions about the authenticity of the election results, especially after the Electoral Commission on Monday acknowledged an account in the local media that results from over 1,000 polling stations had not been counted. The commission, trying to meet a constitutional deadline, concluded that the vote difference between Museveni and his closest challenger, Wine, would not be overturned by votes from the remaining 1,223 polling stations, it said. The commission did not say how many uncounted ballots were affected. The Daily Monitor newspaper had reported that the vote-rich Central District of Wakiso, widely seen as Wine's stronghold, was the most affected. The election was marred by violence ahead of polling day, with Wine and other opposition candidates detained and harassed, as well as an internet shutdown that remained in force until Monday, when access was restored for most Ugandans. Social media sites remain restricted. The International Crisis Group, in an analysis, predicted trouble ahead for Museveni. Many young people see Museveni as the face of an out-of-touch gerontocracy unable to meet the needs of the country's masses of unemployed, said the group's Murithi Mutiga. These frustrations, tapped adroitly by Wine, who made pursuing solutions to unemployment the centerpiece of his campaign, are likely to reverberate throughout the last years of Museveni's presidency. Find more of this from Associated Press, AP News. Still moving forward on Associated Press, the situation is still not yet settled in Uganda as Uganda's opposition rejects Museveni's re-election as fraud. A day after Uganda's longtime leader was declared winner of the country's presidential election, the opposition party dismissed the results as fraud and called for the release of their leader, Bobi Wine, who has been allegedly under house arrest since polling day. President Yoweri Museveni won a sixth five-year term, extending his rule to 4 decades, according to official results. Uganda's military on Sunday continued to hold top opposition challenger Wine at his home, saying troops were there to protect him. Wine dismissed Museveni's victory as cooked-up, fraudulent results while his party urged the government to release him. Wine said Sunday that he has proof that he actually won the election. "We were leading General Museveni by a very large margin, so large that he could not recover," said Wine, speaking on his cell phone to international journalists from his home. "Our polling agents have proof of our victory," said Wine. "We have proof that the military carried out voting fraud, but we cannot publish these videos, because the internet is cut and because the military is chasing our polling agents." Wine said his party, the National Unity Platform, has video evidence of the military stuffing ballot boxes, casting ballots for people and chasing voters away from polling stations. Wine tweeted Sunday that military units are not allowing him and his wife, Barbie, from leaving their house, not even to harvest food from their garden. "It's now 4 days since the military surrounded our home and placed my wife and I under house arrest," said Wine's tweet. "We have run out of food supplies, and when my wife tried to pick food from the garden yesterday, she was blocked and assaulted by the soldiers staged in our compound." Wine said that while he and his wife are being held captive at their property, they are concerned about the safety of his party's polling agents and other supporters. "We are detained at our house, while others have been abducted and are missing. The military is conducting a massive campaign to arrest our agents. Many are on the run." Wine said he and his supporters are pursuing a legal and peaceful challenge to Museveni. "What we are doing is moral and right. We are doing this legally and non-violently. So many people are paying the price for standing up for what is moral and what is right for Uganda. 45 million Ugandans are yearning for peaceful change, to redefine our country and our democracy." Wine's opposition party called on all Ugandans to reject this fraud. "This is a revolution and not an event. A revolution of this nature cannot be stopped by a fraudulent election." The opposition party, in a statement Sunday, said that its quest for a free Uganda is on despite the current attack on free speech and association, referring to the days-long shutdown of the internet by the government. The party urged its followers to use every constitutionally available avenue to pursue political change. "As we speak now, our president, Wine, is under illegal detention at his home," opposition lawmaker Matthias Mpuga told reporters at a news conference Sunday. Mpuga spoke at the headquarters of Wine's party in Kampala. "Perhaps his crime was to defeat Mr. Museveni on the day he has selected as his crowning," he said. "Wine is not allowed to leave or receive visitors at his home," he said. Wine's party alleged that soldiers had actually broken into his compound and were freely using utilities including power and water. "We are concerned about the state in which he is," party spokesman Joel Senyanai said of Wine. "Is his house now a barracks?" He added, "There will be a Uganda after Museveni and there will be an army that serves the interests of the country." Uganda's Electoral Commission said that Museveni received 58% of the vote to Wine's 34%, with a voter turnout of 52%. Although Museveni stays in power, at least 9 of his cabinet ministers, including the vice president, were defeated in the parliamentary elections, many losing to candidates from Wine's party, local media reported. In a generational clash watched across the African continent with a booming young population and a host of aging leaders, the 38-year-old singer-turned-lawmaker Wine posed arguably the greatest challenge yet to Museveni, 76, since he came to power in 1986. Calling himself the ghetto president, Wine had strong support in Uganda's cities, urban where frustration with unemployment and corruption is high. Thanks for watching/listening. These articles from CNN and from AP News have been translated into audio by JB Muwonj. Subscribe to this channel for more of the kind.